What's up, folks? I had a great conversation with Susan, who is the founder and owner of Sapphire Fundraising Specialists. She does a fantastic job working with nonprofits to help them unlock their donor base, their community, to find where those dollars are and help move those missions forward. I met her through a nonprofit networking group that we both belong to, connected, had a couple conversations, and I knew that I wanted to get her on my podcast, talk about strategies, talk about our services around fundraising and how to look through what a donor base looks like and assess where their strengths and weaknesses. So I had a great conversation. Again, Susan, fantastic work, fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed it. For those of you out there looking for somebody to elevate your donor game and build strategies around it outside of communications and public relations, somebody to kind of dive deep into the trenches with you, Susan's your gal. All right. So appreciate you all listening in and tuning into this next episode of the PR Bunker. Welcome back to the PR Bunker, friends. I am down here in a very chilly Boston basement. It is about 2 below nothing at literally 26 degrees here in Boston. But I'm bringing the heat today is my new friend, Susan. We met through Alignable, which is one of the largest platforms for small business owners in North America to help folks like us meet people, learn from other folks, and get connected and do business. Susan, like me, works in a nonprofit space, but on the other side, she's the one that actually gets in there and raises money. But before we get on to that, Susan, thanks for joining me down in the PR Bunker. Pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Don. It's great to be with you.
When we first met, I said I got to have her on my podcast. I love her story because, as I said to you before, I feel everybody's story is a little messy, and we get to where we get, and that's it. And you've learned some things over the years. So before we begin, tell us about your business, your work, and how you got here.
Great. So my company is Sapphire Fundraising Specialists. I founded it almost 5 years ago, which is crazy how time really flies. But I founded it to help establish nonprofits on their fundraising strategy and ensure that their staff and their board feel more confident and clear about what they're trying to do to raise more money, because the goal is never the money, it's to get great impact in the work. And I help them provide the resources that they need to do that.
Love that, which is really hard these days to do because getting anybody's attention on anything is really, really hard, especially to give money if it's not really important. We'll get that in a second. So, but how'd you get here? Clearly you didn't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to be in the fundraising space. Like what did you go to school for? What's your journey to today?
Yes. Well, great question. I joke that no little girl or little boy says, when I grow up, I want to be a fundraiser. I do think we need to figure out a way to change that, but that's a project for a long-term project of mine. But no one really thinks that way, and I definitely did not. I thought I would work in the nonprofit sector. Members of my family had been involved in nonprofits for a while. And in college, I actually thought I'd be more of the marketing, PR type of person. But when I was looking for a job after college, it was, this amazing opportunity fell into my lap where I would get to work at an endowment and plan giving team at a national nonprofit. And it was part marketing, it was part finance, it was part fundraising, and it was administrative, and it was a great learning experience. And I always say to anyone who's looking, to get started right out of college, you're not looking for your peak job at 22. And if you are, that's a long career ahead of you if you're peaking at 22. So you want to find a job it gives you lots of exploration, lots of learning, lots of trying new things, lots of observing other people. And this job was definitely that. And I really fell in love with fundraising. And so I did fundraising for the next 12 or so years until I thought, I'm ready to do something a little different, be entrepreneurial. And I started my own company in 2021.
Wow. So how scary was that, stepping on the dance floor when there's nobody else on the dance floor? It's as an entrepreneur, I get it, but walk me through your brain at that moment. What was the moment? When did you decide to cut the cord? And what was that like?
Yeah, going back, I had been thinking about consulting for a little while prior. And then I really credit this one person who I know, who's not a close person to me, but we were chatting and schmoozing, and he had started his own company, and he had said, you could do this too. And I said, me? What are you talking about? And I had never really thought of it, but once the idea was in my mind, I was like, wait, I could do this. And I started talking with people I trusted and respected and some people who'd started their own company. And they were like, you absolutely could do this. And what's the worst that can happen? And in my case, the worst that could happen was I had to get another development job. And that didn't feel that scary at the time. And starting a business, especially a consulting business like you or I have, isn't extremely heavy, excuse me, not heavy, expensive to get started. So, like there's some cost for sure, but it's not a huge outlay of cash like if you're opening a store or something like that, or you need to distribute materials. So I thought I'm at an age and at a point in my life where this made sense. And so I was like, let's go for it.
Wow. Wow. And so what are the early days like? I mean, how do you get a book of business, and how do you get going? And as you talk through that, like as you get engaged with a client, what are the things you start on day one? What's the work look like?
Yeah, well, I would say to get started is you got to tell everybody you know that you're doing this. And you can't be shy about saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm still learning. I've never started a business before, but just telling people this is what I'm offering and being open to conversations and networking. I think that is extremely important. And most of my clients originally start with people I had already known. And I think actually the harder part is not the first book of business, but the second book of business. Once you've exhausted your network, that second list is much, much harder. So I would say after year 2 or so, it's harder to maintain it. I don't know if that's similar for you, Don.
No, you're right. You nailed it. For me, it's if you were starting your business today, you're going to call probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. Who are your top 50? Because if you don't have that top 50, to your point, you're just out there with a sandwich board going, hey, I take business for food, right? You're just like, you've got to build that network. And I think of my network as an asset. Like I built
Absolutely.
this thing, right? I wouldn't be where I am today without it. And I probably wouldn't have been connected to you because now we're on the platform doing that same thing because of it. So I 1,000% agree with you. Nailed it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. And I also think with networking, this is not a one-time thing. This is not you think about it one time of year. This has to be a constant part of business to keep it
Agreed.
going.
Agreed. Preach it,
Especially,
girlfriend. I appreciate 1,000%. I love that. High fives.
yes, high five to you. And the thing again is that, people only remember so much about you and only remember you so frequently. And it's not that they don't care, they don't want to be helpful, but people are focused on themselves just like we all are. And so with networking and business development, you really have to stay top of mind. So I, began a newsletter, I post a lot on LinkedIn, I go to a lot of networking events. So all of those things have helped me to get to where I am. And so I hope that
Great.
answers the first part
Yeah,
of the
it does.
question.
It does. That's great. That's good
And then this,
because you built it organically. You built your network, conversations, marketing. You told your story, leverage those
absolutely.
relationships, and every Jenga block you stack just led to the next one.
Absolutely. It's all a lot of little seeds being planted. And the other thing I'll also just add is, I'm a company of one. I like to maybe project a little bit bigger and I maybe work with some people here and there, but really I'm a company of one. And I can't compete financially or really in any way in terms of ads, SEO or
Yeah,
AIO. I
correct.
can't get that paid marketing or sponsorship levels like a bigger company can. And that again is where your network, someone remembers, you, Don, who does this
Hmm.
one thing, or me,
Hmm.
Susan, who does this one thing in a way that they're not going to think of the company, hopefully. So again, I think that also is why networking is so important.
Smart, smart. So as you start working your network, bringing in business, I mean, even if the nonprofit's in the same industry, no nonprofit is exactly the same. The people, the systems, all that. I mean, it can be messy, right? I mean, you get in there, you're seen as the white princess on the horse coming in saving the day, right? But
Definitely.
it's Fight Club in there, right? So you're more like you're one of those fighting Disney princesses than the typical princess, right? What's
Absolutely.
it like going in there when you're day one and you're looking around, opening underneath the hood? I mean, what's that like for you? And
Yeah.
talk to us about your process.
Well, I joke that I like to be the bad guy. I don't like to be the princess that's going to save the day.
You want
I'm
to be the
going to be the
badass?
bad. I'm the badass, and I'm the
Love
one who's
that.
actually going to punch them where it
Love
hurts
it.
and say, this
Love it.
isn't working.
Love it.
That's really where I see myself because oftentimes, like you said, each nonprofit has their own little quirks and strengths and things. But oftentimes, what is a big obstacle is internal politics, personalities, maybe some board influences, and getting people to be like, why are you doing this way? I know this is I can't tell you how many times I've heard it, and I'm sure you've heard this too, Don, where it's like, well, this is the way we do it, right? This is
Love
the way
that.
we do it, and we've always done it this
All
way,
the
and it's
time.
worked for us. And let me tell you, you're talking a lot about it's hard to get seen, it's hard to get attention. It is a busy, busy world out there. People are inundated with messages and content from all types. And, you know, what might have worked 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 25 years ago is we're in a different world and it is changing ever more. And
Yesterday.
and so you've got to think, well, maybe, and this is where I think having a trusted consultant and a trusted partner come in and say, perhaps we should try this. Could we try it?
Mm,
And so
mm.
that's where again, I'm not gonna solve the problem for you. I don't do that, but I'm gonna help you think about maybe we need to shift our strategy because what you wanted wasn't working.
What are some of the biggest challenges you feel nonprofits have these days that you're there to unlock? I mean, is it things like, having as simple as having a solid email list? Is it as simple as segmentation? Like, obviously, I know this world really well because it's my
Yeah.
space. But like for those
Yeah.
that are getting into the fundraising space or running a nonprofit, what are some of those just common mistakes that they make that you see day one that you want to fix?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on what stage the nonprofit is at. If they're newer or emerging, I think, which I work less with. I work usually with the organizations that have been around for several years already. But if they're newer, yes, they don't have an email list and they don't prioritize, even if they are interacting with a whole bunch of individuals, they're not saying, how do we get that contact information, organize it in one place, track people in the right way so that we can see their development over time, whether that's giving or just engagement or opening of emails and all of those things. And they just think, well, we've just got to do the work of the organization or the mission, I should say. And they're not thinking about the business structure. And if you don't have the good operations, which means having the right email list, having a website that functions properly, communicating your story out, asking for money and generating more money every year, if you don't have having a good accounting policies. I mean, like all of these things that aren't the sexy, exciting things are really critical for organizations to survive and thrive moving forward. And if you're
Mm,
just focused on the mission work and you're just focused on, well, we've got to meet these needs of our people, but you're not thinking about the back end, it's really going to be unsuccessful. And I'll say, in relation to our business, it's the same thing. If you're only focused on client work and you're never thinking about the accounting of, and making sure you're getting paid for your work and you're never thinking about how you market and you're never thinking about, is my message resonating with the people I want it, and building an email list and all those things, it's exactly the same. So I really think you need to have
got
both
it.
the external and the main work, and you got to have the operations.
Got it. So I have to assume that as you get into these engagements, month 1, 6, 12, 24, there's just the Jenga blocks that get built, right? So clearly you go in day 1 to day 60, things change. But, after you've done this a cycle or two, because, clearly there's a financial cycle most of these nonprofits follow, and annual giving appeals, end of year appeals, that sort of stuff. How does your work like morph and change with the nonprofit from year 2 to year 4 or 5? I mean, clearly you're still delivering the strategy, but how are those adjustments made? Because you're probably forecasting out 6 to 12 months because you're seeing the field when they may not be able to because you have that ability. How do you always stay in front of them so they stay engaged and like, oh, we got to have, like, she is a partner, not a vendor. How do you stay in
Right.
front of that?
Well, I would say typically I'm not working with clients for 2 to 4 years. It's usually not what I do. Sometimes for a capital campaign type of thing
Got
where
it.
it is a
Okay.
longer engagement, a
Yeah.
longer project. But usually we're not working that long. But I will say with fundraising is you're not going to see immediate results. And especially I focus mainly on major gifts, plan giving, and real transformational types of gifts. So
Got it.
those don't happen in 30 days.
No, no, no,
Those
no,
don't
no.
happen in 60 days. You might have a conversation and an agreement in that period of time, but it usually going to take longer, and real strength and change and growth is going to take years. And you have to have the right staff in place, you have to have the right asks in place, you have to be working with the donors and building those relationships. So what I really focus on with my clients is thinking about, where are we right now, where do we want to be a year from now, where do we want to be 5 years from now, and what are the steps we need to do to get there. And that's going to vary. It might be focusing more on major gifts, bringing in new people, increasing the current people who are giving. It might be thinking about different ways of giving. So again, I mentioned plan giving, which is really growing and only going to get bigger given, and this is an important factor in our field, is that we have a generational change happening and a wealth transfer happening between generations. So there's a lot of things to be considering, but I think what's really important is building strong donor relationships. That's critical. You've got to get leadership involved in fundraising. A CEO can't say, which once was said to me, I hate
Yep.
fundraising, I want nothing to do with it. Not okay, not acceptable. You're not going to grow and be a strong organization when you have the
Yeah.
leadership have that mentality.
Agreed.
And three is you've got to be thinking, you've got to be trying new things. You can't just be doing things that worked in the past because it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. One thing I love about the space, and you kind of alluded to it, is that it's kind of like networking for your business, right? Your $1 million gift doesn't happen because they got an email. It gives
Absolutely not.
because somebody like you, prep the ED to go into the room. Here's who you're meeting. This is what makes them tick. This is why they give. They got 3 kids. They got a dog by the name of Charlie. Like
Exactly.
literally the entire,
Yes.
phone book of information at
A
them to
donor
get prepared.
profile.
And
Yeah.
it's donor profile, and it's still, I mean, yeah, you can still get maybe $1,010 gifts, but it's really where that top 8 to 5% of those donors at that top level that really drive a big majority of those dollars.
Yeah, I mean, again, it really different organizations are structured differently and have different ratios of their top donors to their lower donors. But for the most part, many nonprofits, a lot of their individual gifts come from a few top donors. And also, what's really important, why I keep talking about generations, not every nonprofit, but I would say 75% plus of US based nonprofits, their top donors are all over the age of 60, or most of their donors are over the age of 60 at those top levels.
Wow.
And so it's just something to be thinking about, that are those donors, what's going to happen when they're no longer able to make those gifts? Do their kids care about the mission in the same way? And thinking about how can you make this a family gift and keep that giving going? Or do you need to find the younger donors? But yes, the building of the relationships and making sure that the CEO or the board chair, whomever, the chief advancement officer, understand this donor cares about these things. This is how they got connected to us. This is what they've done before. And oftentimes, those really big $1 million asks, that's not a one time meeting. That might be 3 meetings over a year and having a conversation, because perhaps the gift is intended for a specific purpose. And so, really making sure that they are excited about the gift, because you want the donor to be happy about the giving, not feel like their arms were twisted. Because
Yeah.
I guarantee
Valid.
they're not going to want to give again when they feel like they weren't happy about how they voluntarily gave that money to you.
Yep. And they want to see the impact, right? They're doing out of
100%.
the kindness of their heart, but they also want to make sure that there's some sort of impact that they feel they're connected to in some way, shape, or form. Which leads me to my next
Absolutely.
question. Love to, my just I feel like folks that work in this space, there's a reason why they do it, and it's something about the work that fuels their energy and their passion around it. So what fuels you to do what you do?
I strongly believe in the power of philanthropy. I believe, there's this one phrase, it's a Hebrew proverb that really is sort of my main thing, which is if you change one life, you change the world. And so
Mm,
I think that if you can make a difference in one person's life, you can make the world better. And so I believe that philanthropy helps to do that. And if I can help more organizations raise more money so that they can help more lives, make a cleaner planet, safer communities, solve diseases,
mm,
educate people better, all of the things that we all care about, I think what a gift I'm giving, and I feel so good about helping that, and in my small part, in my
yeah.
small way.
We're aligned there because I mean, for me, it's mission driven, impact focused, right? I want to work with good people, doing good things, impacting the lives of other people in a positive way. And you can still make good money, have a great life, and live a
Absolutely.
lifestyle, but at the same time, to have your thumbprint on any of those campaigns, I think is just a incredible thing. And to see the impact and the smile on people's faces, and just the I also think the connection you make with people, your clients in this space, is different, right? You don't really get that vendor part,
No.
like relationship. It's like I know my EDs really well, and I know what makes them tick, and they know me really well. And we've gone to dinner, we've had some experiences. Just
Yeah,
this makes that there's a relationship. It goes again back to our networking point, which I think is so
absolutely.
fruitful for you. You know?
Well, the number of times I've had a client say, this was like my fundraising therapy, because, fundraising can be really hard. And I'm part cheerleader, I'm part motivator, I'm a part accountability partner. Especially for a CEO or executive director, they don't have a lot of people they can be
Yeah,
vulnerable with,
they can trust.
especially,
Yeah.
career wise, at least.
No, you're
And
right.
I think being someone who they can trust, being someone who they can bounce off ideas with, who they can, test ideas. Something I do with a lot of my clients is we will role play the solicitation experience. So I will pretend to be the donor and they pretend to be themselves and go through that. And I can provide feedback for them in real time. Because so often in those types of experiences, you don't really know how you're being perceived because the person's who you're talking to isn't going to give you that type of feedback. And so that's another thing that, again, being a partner and not a vendor. I would never think of myself as a vendor. And, my goal again is how can I be as supportive to them as possible? But like you said before, again, I'm not a nonprofit. I'm here to make money. I'm here to do great, but I'm here to do great work with other organizations.
What's an example of your work you're most proud of when people ask you about the work that you do?
Well, something I'm very excited about that is coming up is one of my clients. I was working with a university and they are a historically Black college. Soon they had decided before I started with them, they had decided that one of their revenue producers would be to get a football team to the school because I knew nothing
Oh
about
yeah,
this, but there's a whole bunch of stuff about having football and how it provides income for a school. But they needed to raise money to get started. So we worked together and I'm very excited. Football is coming in the fall, which is thrilled. Again, I had a small part in it, but I'm really excited for them. I'm excited what this will do for the community at large and the school. And I'm really
that's
proud.
cool. I mean, I'm a big football fan, so
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And plus, I mean, you've got building of a stadium, which creates jobs. Jobs for those that manage the team, head coach, assistant coach, personal trainers, equipment, fundraising opportunities. Right, going from probably a D1, D2, or D3, D2 to a maybe some point D1 competitive school, and
Yeah.
all types of revenue comes as well. It's like when schools try to go to a research institute because they're going to have access to dollars to do those research. So athletics,
Athletic,
is
it's really
yeah,
interesting because
it
again, you
is.
might have people who are able to attend a 4-year university and that they otherwise would never have been able to, and what that can do for the rest of their life. But forget just the athletes. You also have the community after a football game. There's talk about vendors, there's
Totally.
restaurants, there's different
Oh yeah.
places that can build up a community that could really use the financial support and development. So that's huge. Beyond just athletes, there's the band that's going to be involved, the
Oh, yeah.
cheerleaders, there's all
Yeah.
this other infrastructure that goes into place, but getting started is sometimes the hardest part and getting that funding. And so that was where I
Right.
was involved.
Got it. Well, so if somebody wants to get into this space and they're interested in learning more, I mean, what's some of the advice that you would give your younger self when you were maybe not thinking about going to the space? What are the things that like
Yeah.
you're amazed that you've learned about, or the skills you've picked up today versus what you thought you were going into, 10, 15 years ago? What some
Yeah.
advice would you provide to somebody coming into the field?
Well, I don't know if you mean fundraising or a consultant or both, but
Yeah, well, both.
yeah. Well, I would say number one, and we started with this is the importance of networking
Yeah.
is so important. And again, it is often about who you know. And you don't always want to admit that you found out about this thing, but I'll also share I did a thesis in college that was called Elderly Gossip in Retirement Communities.
Really?
Learning about gossip. And the thing that's so critical about gossip, I think it gets a bad rap, but if you know things first, you can get ahead. And it's the same thing you could talk journalism is kind of like
Yeah.
gossip, but
Yeah. Agreed.
job opportunities, all that stuff. If you know things and you're talking to more people, and again, more people know about you, I think it will only help your career. So and again, staying in touch with people. I wish I had done more of that in my early career.
Same.
And another thing that I really wish I did early parts of my career that I definitely did not do, and I'm telling anyone who's listening to this to do this right now, is track the work that you do. Because I don't have like a list of what I did from age, 22 to 27. I mean, I know theoretically, but I don't have a list of what I did or the accomplishments or really
Hmm.
good data about that. And I think you forget. You forget. You think you'll remember, but you forget. So I would say network and track the work that you do and your achievements because as time goes on, your memory will fade. And
Smart.
so I highly encourage you to track that information.
Smart. That's good stuff. So what's next for you in your business? What's on the horizon?
Again, I'm approaching my 5-year anniversary, which feels like a big
Great.
accomplishment in
Love it. Yeah, you made it.
business. That feels pretty damn good, I have to say. I'm pretty proud of myself. And so right now I'm just I love what I do. I'm really proud of it. And I just want to keep working with other established nonprofits that have interesting stories to tell and need some help on that donor strategy and thinking through all the changes we're going through as a society and how do they continue to thrive and in this market and environment. And that's really where I see my business going, is to keep working as we're doing.
Now, on to the next 5 years, right?
On to the next. Yeah.
Love it. So if people want to learn more, if you're a nonprofit out there that needs help, where can they find you?
Sure. So they could go to my website, which is sapphirefundraisingspecialist.com. I'm sure we could add a link because that's a long
Absolutely.
title. I will say, for anyone who's starting a business, naming their company, it can be really difficult. And if there's one thing I would do differently, it was find a way to make a shorter name, because I didn't know how many times you have to write out your name. That would be my other recommendation, shorter name for the company.
That's why mine's the PR Bunker. Nice and short and sweet.
I can't even tell you. It's my name is too long. I've thought about changing it and I'm like, such a mess. Anyways, but that would be the other thing. So find me there or find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. You can find my email address that way. And my name again is Susan Kahan. And I'd love to
And they can find you on Alignable as well.
Oh, I'm actually not really in Alignable.
No? Oh, I have to get there.
That's how we met, but
Maybe
I
not.
thought we met through Lee Tucker.
Probably Lee, LinkedIn. I mean, one of these, like,
I'm
to your
probably
point
on
earlier-
Alignable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably,
but I don't really use it. Yeah.
But to your point earlier, I mean, like, the amount of channels we have access to meet people, right? It's email, it's social, it's in-person networking, it's through folks like Lee Tucker. Shout out Lee Tucker, by the way. If you're in the nonprofit space, you don't go to Lee Tucker's nonprofit executive meetup every single month, you are missing out. That's why you find, talented people like Susan and elsewhere. So, I mean, I agree. I'm kind of on all the platforms, so I sort of have to, but at the same time, it's really what we're doing now, which really matters, which is getting to know people, having several conversations, figuring out where you have gaps in your business, and finding other talented people, to your point, to build those Jenga blocks, to add those stacks. But it's good stuff. So, well, congratulations on 5 years, and congratulations on continue to spell out the name of your company the accurate way, because it's so long. But looking forward to the next 5 years. And again, if anybody can find you again, what's the website address one more time?
It's sapphirefundraisingspecialist.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for joining me down here in the PR Bunker. Congratulations on 5 years. I'm sure we'll be talking. But again, if anybody wants to need some help in fundraising and just can't figure out what is blocking or stopping, or just don't know where to start, please reach out to Susan and her team and herself, and everything she's learned can bring those skills to the table to help you unlock those things. But Susan, thanks again for joining the PR Bunker. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, John. It was great to be here.
Excellent.
Thanks for tuning in to the PR Bunker podcast, where we go beyond the headlines and into the trenches with founders, builders, and operators making real moves. This show is brought to you by the PR Bunker, a strategic communications agency helping mission-driven and impact-focused organizations cut through the noise and tell stories that matter. Want to learn more? Head to prbunker.com and subscribe to the Bunker Briefing, our monthly email newsletter packed with a 45-second read that's stacked with value. We're talking practical PR and communications insights, networking.